Hey, what's up, true believers? Welcome to the Freethinking Film Club, where we use pop culture as a tool for Christian apologetics. My name is Tim Stratton. I'm the founder of Freethinking Ministries, an organization focused on apologetics, theology, and worldview. Now, ultimately, our goal is to equip the church to engage the culture. And we think one of the best ways to do this is to connect with people through movies and entertainment in general. Now, most good stories reflect elements of the gospel. So why not use these as teaching moments, as it were, to help people see truth and reality? You know, my parents used to use and refer to movies like Star Wars and read books like the Chronicles of Narnia and the Lord of the Rings and just comic books to help explain ultimate reality to me when I was just a little kid. In fact, over the decades, these conversations have not stopped. We still discuss these things, and today they're in their early 70s, but we keep talking about these issues. Now, this approach really helped me understand the way things are, truth and reality. And so Freethinking Ministries hopes to continue helping people in this manner on YouTube today. So with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce a guy who's going to be a regular on this show. He's much younger than me, so we hope to be able to reach a range of ages or generations between the two of us. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Graden Sykes. Hey, Graden, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey Tim, yeah, thanks so much for having me on this show. It's a huge honor. I've been following the ministry for a while, and a little bit about myself. I started editing the videos and managing the content here on the YouTube channel about a year ago, and kind of pitched this idea of the film club a few weeks ago, and it's been something that we've been working on and really excited to bring to the subscribers, and really hoping that it takes off because this is something that I'm passionate about, all these movies and pop culture references and how they connect to Christianity. So yeah, definitely excited to get going on this new show. Today we're going to be reviewing Zack Snyder's Justice League. This movie just came out last week to HBO Max, and it's a beefy 4-hour movie. So it was a little tough to get to, but we're going to be analyzing the plot, characters, and the themes of the film, and seeing how they connect to the Christian worldview and see if we can pull anything out of there. Real quick, I just want to say if you want to subscribe and like this video, that'll definitely help the channel out, and because we're going to be bringing you more content like this in the future, and we'll be refining it, and the more support you give, the better content we can give you. So with that, let's just jump right into the review. Tim, what'd you think of it?
Well, man, I really like the Snyder cut of Justice League. Now, I got to be honest, I hated the original Justice League that came out in 2017.
Yeah.
Well, maybe hate might be a little too strong of a word. Let's just say I severely disliked it. It really kind of let me down. I was so excited to see it. I remember my expectations were so high, and I waited in line for a long time to see this movie on opening night. But after the movie started, it didn't take long for me to realize that the movie was going to be a flop. And
Yeah.
so when the movie finally came to an end, and I say finally, I was like, can't this thing just get over? And it wasn't 4 hours back then. It was just like a couple hour movie, right? But it seemed to drag on for multiple hours. And when the movie finally came to an end, it just really left a bad taste in my mouth. So I didn't even watch it again. I mean, I didn't even watch it on, on video. So I did, however, finally watch it again, if you could call it the same movie, last week when I watched the Snyder cut of Justice League. And that was a 4-hour movie, but it didn't seem like it. It seemed like a 2-hour movie to me. So yeah, I loved it. And it really shows the difference that a director can make. And, Graden, I guess we saw that much when we saw the difference between a J.J. Abrams Star Wars movie and a Rian Johnson Star Wars movie. Don't get me started on that. That's another topic for another show, I guess. But anyway, the updated version of Justice League, like I said, it's a total of 4 hours, but it seemed to fly by. And I can't wait to see it again. Hey, shout out to my next door neighbor, Noel Carnahan, because he invited me over to watch the movie on his big screen. He's got a nice theater set up in his basement, and we had a really good time watching that show together. So yeah, thanks for that, Noel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great that you were able to get somewhat of a theater experience during these
That's right.
COVID times.
Yeah.
I think in the past year, my wife and I have only seen 2 movies in the theater, and
Wow.
we've just been dying inside a little bit because that was
Yeah.
our like
Tell
weekend
me,
tradition. So we're
really,
excited to
yeah,
get back.
right. I feel the same way. Just tell me, what were those 2 movies you saw in the theater?
So we saw Tenet, which was
Okay.
an unbelievable theater experience, even though it
Good.
was so restricted. And then
Yeah.
last week, one of our favorite theaters is starting to reintroduce some movies, and so we went and we saw Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh
It was
yeah.
like a Disney movie that came out. We honestly didn't care what was playing. We just wanted to get out to the
Right.
theater. So, yeah, those are the 2 that we've
Yeah.
seen in
Yeah.
theaters this past year. And yeah.
Well, I got to see the latest Bill and Ted's movie in the theater. So
Oh yeah,
that
nice.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah, and I'll kind of echo your sentiment about the original cut. I was super disappointed. I've always kind of described it as a stinky dumpster fire. And that's saying a lot because even in terms of the DC extended universe, the sort of universe of movies, it was at the bottom for me.
Yeah.
But the Snyder cut just took it way up to the top of those
Right.
movies, and I really enjoyed it. Like you said, it felt like it went by really quickly. It was enjoyable. It was a coherent story, and overall, I really liked it. I've got some nitpicks and some gripes about it, but
Yeah.
I really can't complain. And I'm just happy to see that it was released. It was a
Right.
kind of a tragic story about why Zack Snyder couldn't finish this movie, and so the fact that he was able to sort of finish his creative vision, even though I have some disagreements with his creative vision. It's always nice to see an artist be able to kind of do things the way that they always intended. So that's a
Amen to
huge
that.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what specifically did you really like about the movie?
Well, I guess what I liked about this version was the character development, which was severely lacking in the original, right? I mean, think about how Marvel developed a dozen or so characters, maybe more, over around 20 movies before Endgame was released. I mean, each character was developed so well over years that by the time Infinity War and Endgame hit the theaters, I mean, each character was like family to each of us. When you think about that, I mean, how a story like that can really bring a country that's otherwise so divided together. I mean, theaters across the nation were cheering. I mean, that you think about in an Endgame, how many cheers filled those movie theaters across the nation. I mean, it was loud. The crowds were cheering. I'll never forget how loud it was with people cheering, and tears of joy to hollers and of just excitement and exhilaration, and it was crazy. It was like seeing a come from behind victory at a Super Bowl or something like that.
Absolutely,
it was just crazy. And that's why there was, like I said, there was so many tears shed also when Tony Stark sacrificed his life for the sake of the universe. Spoiler alert, I think enough time has passed now that we can say that, but it's really because of the character development, and then the audience being able to bond with the characters on the screen. And the original Justice League really failed at that. I mean, there was a couple characters that were developed. I would say Batman wasn't even developed in that storyline. It was developed in other storylines, right? So we knew Batman from Christian Bale, really, and we kind of felt like Ben Affleck was, just putting the mask on now. Superman was developed in the Man of Steel movie. I thought that was a well done movie. I loved the first Wonder Woman also. But you got the Flash not developed there, Cyborg not developed, and just even the stars of the show. I felt like even Superman could have been developed more in that show, in that movie. So the original Justice League failed at developing characters. Now, Zack Snyder then made sure to take the time, after all, it's a 4-hour movie, to make sure that the characters were developed, and that we connected a bit more with each character. So yeah, that's probably one of the main things that I liked. And I thought the just the cinematography and the computer animation, all that was improved as well. So I don't know. What about you? What did you like about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll second that. The character development was something that was lacking, and I really appreciated that all of the heroes got a little bit more of the spotlight and a little bit better of a treatment so that we could understand where they were coming from, but also extending that to the villains. I think that that's a really important thing, especially in stories of good versus evil. The best villains are ones that you can sort of relate to and you sort of understand where they're
Yeah,
coming from, even if they're completely off base.
right.
So I thought that the villains were given a really great treatment here, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the visual effects. Since this was a sort of low budget cut of the movie, and that there were lots of visual effects that needed to be finished, I was expecting it to kind of look a little janky, but there were only a couple times where I really thought that it stood out as being awkward and unfinished. So
Yeah,
definitely have to applaud them for that. Yeah.
yeah, well said. What didn't you like about the movie?
There were just a couple like kind of nitpicks that I can get into. It's such a funny thing to not like, but I really don't like the way that the Flash was presented in this movie. I think
Really?
it's a weird trend that we've gotten into since I think Quicksilver and the X-Men movies, where super speed is presented as people moving through like a really slowed down version of the world, and that's fine when you see, you know, when you have a balance of them moving really fast and then interacting with a slow world. But like the Flash just like moves in slow motion in this weird way that he runs in slow motion. So you never really get to appreciate how fast he's going except for a couple scenes. So I mean,
Yeah.
and that's just such a little nitpick that it doesn't really matter. But and I thought that like the final battle was a little bit strange. I wasn't quite sure what to think of the stakes. When you have that big climactic moment. By the way, we're getting into spoilers here, especially right
Yeah.
now. When you get into that big climactic moment where the mother boxes fuse and it looks like the heroes have lost, I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. It honestly
Mm.
took me by surprise that um, the world was just going to explode.
Yeah.
They had several different explanations through the movie as to what was going to happen.
Mm.
They talked about how Darkseid wanted this to happen so that he could use the mother boxes to enslave the people of the planet that he's conquering, turn them into the sort of goons, the parademons, or
Yeah.
even there was an explanation that it like changes the planet into a copy of his homeworld. So I really wasn't sure what was happening.
Mm.
And so then when the world exploded and the Flash had to reverse time, that's an excellent scene. But I didn't know what was happening until after it happened. So I wasn't really like emotionally invested in what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that I didn't like, a small nitpick, was just that Jared Leto's Joker will never win my heart. I can't get over him. It was an improvement over his performance in Suicide Squad, but
Right.
he's I don't know what it is. I can't even put words to it, but he's just strange and not in a villainous cool way. He's just
Mm.
kind of lame. Yeah.
Well, it was an improvement though, so at
Oh
least
yeah.
he's got that going for him. And maybe some of that is his makeup. I thought was better, and more in line with Heath Ledger's Joker, who I think will always be the best Joker that I've ever seen. But but yeah, there's definitely a difference there. But I was happy to see an improvement. But yeah, you're right. There's something a little off there. But
Hmm.
anyway, I. Uh, I guess if I had any nitpicks, I wanted more Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about you, but I really liked, when I was a little kid, even I really liked Martian Manhunter. I thought the action figure was awesome. I never really knew a lot about him, but I thought he was just so cool. What I did know about him, I knew he was very powerful, and I just thought he was cool. Um, uh, but sadly, I talk about character development. He's really the only character that was not really developed in this movie, but
Hmm.
that was just because he was merely being introduced. So I'm hoping that they do make a movie focused solely on him. He's an awesome character, and Harry Lennox, the actor who portrays him, he's a fantastic actor. He's really one of my favorite actors in all of Hollywood. So when I saw him turn into Martian Manhunter and the Zack Snyder cut, I was like, no way, this is awesome. And I was hoping for more of him, more from him, at least in the end of the movie. Didn't really happen during, at least not during the fight scene, which I was hoping for. But, they introduced him. So I hope they introduce him and spin some stories off focused on the Martian Manhunter. So we'll see. I mean, have you heard any rumors as to what's going to happen?
Nothing about Martian Manhunter. I know that they're working on, some other one-off movies from different characters there. But, this is just such an interesting movie in the sort of trend of cinematic universes because, the studio that produces these DC movies is considering the Snyder Cut non-canon. So in terms of the canon of the universe, Martian Manhunter may not even exist at this point.
Wow.
So we'll see. But this movie really demonstrated the power of the fans. So we'll see how things change. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some movement on that front, but time will tell.
I hope so. We'll definitely report it here.
100%. So let's jump into some of these sort of theological implications that we discovered while watching this movie. It looks like you were kind of interested in the ideas of good and evil in this movie. How does that relate to the Christian worldview?
Yeah, any movie that depicts good versus evil is a movie that a Christian can instantly relate to. I think we should instantly relate to those stories. Now, oftentimes, it seems to me, especially with DC movies, the bad guys aren't really maybe morally evil. They're just kind of crazy. They're insane. Now, this is the case with the Joker, and seems to be the case with the latest rendition of Lex Luthor. But when you think about it, perhaps that's what happens when one fails to take their thoughts captive for too long. Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians 10:5 to take our thoughts captive to obey Christ. And he also warns us that bad thinking, shallow thinking, shallow philosophy can take us captive in Colossians 2:8. So it seems to me that if one fails to take their thoughts captive to obey Christ for long enough, that you will go crazy, that your cognitive faculties will be damaged, that you can actually damage them, and so you can't think clearly and become evil. So with that said, Steppenwolf and now Darkseid being introduced just seem to be, just plain evil. And so it seems that, when you look at them, even they seem somewhat maybe demonic in appearance. So I always love a good versus evil story, and I think this movie provides just that. And I think the Snyder Cut did a better job of doing that than the original movie as well. So and I'll tell you this, it's the little things that really win me over. And one of my favorite little things of the movie is at the end of the movie. And I think, if memory serves, they're discussing, the official formation of the Justice League, and they have a building, and they're talking about the table and the chairs around the table and stuff like that. And then Bruce Wayne, I don't think he says this in the original, maybe I'm wrong, but I clearly caught it here in the Zack Snyder cut. Bruce Wayne says, "God help us." And I was like, amen to that. I mean, what a way to end it. The last Justice League left a bad taste in my mouth, and that being kind of at the end of the movie really left a good taste in my mouth. So it's a little thing, but those little things mean a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I hadn't even really thought of it until just now, but it's interesting when movies like this mention God as sort of a metaphysical being outside of the universe and who's not contingent on anything else, because you have characters like Darkseid and Steppenwolf who are referred to as the new gods, little lowercase g new gods.
Hmm.
And, you know, so you have this idea of supreme power and deity in these characters and in these villains, but then there's still this acknowledgement that, like, regardless of if these sorts of lowercase g gods exist, they're still dependent on something higher. There still needs to
Yeah,
be this sort of uncaused first mover in order to even create these villainous, you know, the new gods. You know, I
that's
even
right.
struggle calling them gods because they just don't fit the definition of a god. It's
That's
so
right.
strange. But
Yeah,
yeah, and even just talking about Darkseid and Steppenwolf as a whole, I thought that their relationship was really interesting because this whole plot revolves around the idea that Steppenwolf comes to Earth to conquer Earth in order to redeem himself and earn the forgiveness of his master Darkseid. And it just
yeah,
made me so appreciate that, like, hey, you know, we don't serve a god like Darkseid. You know,
right.
God gives us forgiveness and salvation as a free gift. We don't have to earn it, and we don't have to conquer planets and slaughter people for forgiveness. And it just
Yeah,
it highlights the quality of his
yeah,
character and the lack of quality in Darkseid. I just thought that was so interesting.
yeah. In fact, God wants us to do the opposite. He wants
Yeah.
us to love our neighbors, even our enemies, and to help other humans flourish. I mean, I think of
Right.
the the parable of oh, I want to say the prodigal son, but that's not it. The Good Samaritan, and how we've got even two different people groups here portrayed in this parable that Jesus tells, and these two different people groups, it's really kind of the closest thing to maybe what we might think of as racism of the time. These two different people groups who have been hostile to each other previously, and now one sees the other in suffering and on the verge of death. And this guy sacrifices his time, his money. He's willing to sacrifice everything to see this guy flourish. And that's what God wants from us.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely opposed to what Darkseid would offer.
Right. Right. Yeah, we don't serve a villain, that's for sure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so sort of talking a little bit more about characters, it sounds like you had some notes on Batman's characterization and how he highlights some moral qualities. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Let's talk about Batman and Bruce Wayne. Um, I really didn't like Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman previously. Uh, I was a big Christian Bale fan. I thought he hit it out of the park.
Oh yeah.
And I just felt like uh, Affleck was pretending. Uh, but for some reason, in the Snyder cut, I loved him. I thought he did a great job. And so I don't know if Snyder did things different with him or if it was just me. I don't know, but I bought into it now. I bought Ben Affleck's Batman, or what do they call him, Batfleck or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. They
Um,
always have a weird term for the
right.
actors who play Batman for some reason.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I liked it this time. Now, one thing that really stood out to me, and something that I think exhibits a positive Christian character, is how Bruce Wayne realized how wrong he was in the past. When he was trying to kill Superman in the Batman versus Superman movie. And thankfully, Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, spoiler alert, again, they both have mothers who share the same name, Martha. And so, even if they were trying to kill each other, once they realize, hey, our moms have the same name, forget it. Let's sweep all that under the rug. Let's be besties. All right. Man, I got to tell you, I think that was the worst element of almost any storyline I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's definitely the worst thing DC ever did, in my opinion. I
It
was
just
kind of
doesn't make
enjoying,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, I was enjoying the movie, Batman versus Superman, and then that happened. I was just like, oh, you're kidding me. Um, but I digress. Let's not talk about that. What I did like about the updated version of Justice League is that Bruce Wayne realized that he was wrong in the past, and he sought then to make things right. Right? It's a great quality to realize when you're wrong and to seek forgiveness and to try to make things right. And he said something to the effect of, I think he said, I spent a lot of time trying to divide us.
Mm.
I need to bring us together and make this right. And when he said that, I was like, oh man, I think that was one of the reasons when or why I really started to like now Batfleck, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So indeed, I'll tell you what, in our current culture today, it seems to me that many Christians, brothers and sisters in Christ, have been divided over some other cultural issues. And so I think that many Christians have made some big mistakes. And I've been kind of vocal in pointing out what I think are mistakes, but I also need to be open to be corrected myself. I'm not perfect. I'm not infallible. And I'm sure I've made some mistakes. But after all, I mean, everybody always thinks they're right. Nobody goes into a conversation thinking they're wrong, right? So we've got to be open, though, to realizing that we could be wrong, and we ought to be open to accountability and to listen to the critique of others. We always need to be willing to change our minds. And I said the other day, somebody said that what did they say? Like I should, something about me being in a debate. Oh, they said this. Tim loves to get in theological debates because even if he loses, he can beat the guy up, because I used to be an MMA and a martial artist and stuff. It's all a joke. But I said, well, look, I never lose a debate. I either win or I change my mind because I realize I was wrong. And so it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really served me well is I'm going to fight for what I believe is true, always being willing to change my mind. If you can bring a good argument, then I'm going to consider that and step back and reevaluate. And I believe that this is actually a gift that we've been given, a God-given gift, that we actually are free to examine our beliefs and change our minds. But with that said, brothers and sisters in Christ ought to work together to make things right. We ought to work hard to stand united. And I loved how Bruce Wayne realized that he was wrong and then sought to make things right. He realized how he brought division, between good people. And now he sought to unite good people and bring them together. And when we think of the church at large, with the capital C, when Christians are divided, our culture will fall. But when Christians are united, the culture will flourish, it seems to me. So we got to strive for love and unity without compromising truth. And anyway, I love how Bruce Wayne, how Batman realized that he was wrong, and he was wrong in that movie. He was being stupid, but he sought then to make things right and bring unity, and that's perfect. A great example, and we can learn a lot from his example. So that's one of the big things that I took away from the movie. So what about you, Graden? What character did you see reflect a positive Christian character?
I think that's one of the things that I was going to say, was that I think that Batman had the best positive character arc, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great that he was able to change his mind. But another thing that I thought was really interesting was the way that that Cyborg was presented, and the way that he was presented as having to make a choice when he first was formed. I think it was kind of a speech that was given by his dad, where it's like, you have the power to completely uproot the financial systems of the world.
Right.
You could activate a nuclear holocaust with a single thought, but it's up to you to decide to do the right thing and to fight for what's good. And
that was good.
None of us really have the power to do things on that scale to destroy the world. But every day we have battles to fight where we need to choose what's right and what's wrong.
That's right.
And so he chose to do the right thing, even though he thought of himself as a monster, and he probably had every right to lash out and destroy the world. But he still saw the good, and he still chose the good. So that was great.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And I would just add this. I think Henry Cavill is the best Superman I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. He's
Yeah,
great, and that's another point that I was kind of intrigued by, even though I don't fully understand what Zack Snyder was going for. Um, Zack Snyder kind of has this obsession with making Superman in his movies into a Christ figure, just in
yeah.
the way that he poses him, and the way that
Hmm.
he frames shots of Henry Cavill's Superman, and even sort of with the story where he's this sort of salvific figure who then
Yeah,
dies and then is resurrected. I don't think that there's
right,
as much
right.
like theologically significant, but it just seems like it's a style choice of Snyder's to make him a Christ
Oh
figure.
yeah. Well, like I said earlier, any good story is going to have elements that reflect the gospel, and this was clearly stolen from the gospel. Is
Hmm.
and so, but the great thing is with movies like this, even if um, you might not have loved it in the story, it still gives us something when we're having conversations with those in culture to show people, to bring it back to Scripture. Say, when this happened with Superman, this was actually ripped off, as it were, from Jesus. Jesus was the original Superman, right?
Hmm.
And so it gives us a talking point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It gives us a stepping stone for talking about the evidence for the resurrection and for his claims to deity and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep talking about the characters here. Um, yeah, what characters? So we talked about the characters that have a good Christian worldview or whatever. What about characters that have a distorted worldview? What'd you think?
Yeah, kind of like what I was talking about with Darkseid and Steppenwolf before, that
Yeah,
their relationship is just kind of a messed up, distorted view of seeking forgiveness and redemption, and it's something
yeah.
that we definitely shouldn't take cues from. So
Yeah.
yeah, what did you think about that?
Well, definitely. Like we said, any good story is going to have good versus evil, and so you're going to be able to find characters that relate to God and to Christ, and you're going to have characters that relate to Satan and just plain evil. So yeah, in this movie we got Darkseid, we got Steppenwolf, we got a little bit of Lex Luthor and the Joker, and they don't possess a grasp of reality, right? I mean, God exists. We talked about this earlier. God exists and created humanity on purpose and for the specific purpose of love. And God's intent and design plan for humanity, and perhaps for aliens too, is for all people to love and be loved by each other. And that goal is for eternity also. Now, bad guys who attempt to harm humanity miss the mark. And that's what it literally means. That's a definition of sin. So bad guys who attempt to harm humanity miss the mark. They sin in an objective sense. And, that's exactly why we need heroes. That's why we need the Justice League. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to see characters that have a decent worldview fighting characters who have a distorted worldview.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I don't think that that'll ever change, this sort of good versus evil, villains versus heroes sort of story. It resonates with us so deeply, and
Yeah.
definitely for that purpose, I think.
And I think
Um,
that's because it reflects reality,
yeah,
ultimate
absolutely,
reality. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think those were kind of all the points that we wanted to hit on the movie so far. Unless you had any other thoughts.
Uh, you know, the as I mentioned earlier, uh, I was after 4 hours, I was left wanting more. Which was crazy. I mean, after the first time I saw the movie in 2017 in the theater, after 2 hours, I couldn't wait to get out of there. But this time, after 4 hours, I was like, "Oh man, you could have easily offered another 2 hours," and I'd have stuck around. Um, I wanted more Martian Manhunter, like I said before. I loved that action figure as a kid, and it was so cool to see him in the Snyder Cut. And what many people here might find surprising is that the actor who plays Martian Manhunter, Harry Lennox, is actually a friend of mine. And in fact, just recently, we were texting with each other, and we call each other on occasion. He's just an awesome guy who takes his theology very seriously, and he's become one of my favorite actors. I thought he was a great actor before I got to know him, and now I've got to know him and like him even more. But he's a great actor. And also he's informed me that he is reading my book. I got to give a plug here: Human Freedom, Divine Knowledge, and Mere Molinism. Get the book. You can get it on Amazon. It's only $9.99 on Kindle. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, Harry told me that he is reading the book, and we're going to have some discussion on that soon, I'm sure. But Harry Lennix is part of the DC universe. He's been a part of the Matrix movies, which the Matrix movies, I love them. The Matrix is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Harry also plays a starring role in my favorite network television show, The Blacklist. I just absolutely love that show. But make sure I've got an article on the Freethinking Ministries website. So freethinkingministries.com. Make sure if you're watching this, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also make sure that you go to the website and you can get, sign up for everything that we publish there every week. But I've got an article on there called Revival, the Experience, reviewing a ghost story that happens to be true. And that's a movie that Harry Lennix directed and starred in. Is called Revival, the Experience. And one of the things that he says in that movie, he says that this is a ghost story that happens to be true. And so I love that. So Harry's a Christian, takes his theology very seriously, and he is the Martian Manhunter. So man, I really hope we get to see more of his character. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see some more of his character, but it's so cool to hear that he's a serious Christian and that you guys are tight, and
Yeah.
hopefully maybe someday we can get him on the show. That'd be pretty stunning. That'd be awesome.
I'll see what I can do.
And
Let
I'll
me-
link the article that you were just talking about his
Okay.
movie in the description for people to look
Yeah.
at if they're interested.
All right, man. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you rating the movie?
I think overall it's an improvement to the original cut. It's an enjoyable movie. Since it's so long, I can't say I necessarily recommend it to anybody who's not entirely invested in the characters or the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But since it's an improvement, I'd probably give it a solid 6.5 or 7 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and I are right on the same page there. I'd say if Infinity War and Endgame, those Avengers movies, I would give those 10s.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're maybe the best movies of all time. But Iron Man 3, Captain Marvel, they were good. I'm glad I saw them. I'd probably watch them again, but I didn't love them. I'd give those 3s or 4s. I didn't hate them. I liked them. Justice League, the first one of 2017, that was just a 1.
Mm-hmm.
But with all that in mind, I'd give the Snyder Cut Justice League, like you said, a solid 6.5, maybe getting close to a 7. Yeah, a movie's got to be just awesome for me to give it a 7 or above. And I wouldn't say it was just awesome, but it was really good. And I'm really glad I saw it, and I want to see it again, and I'd be willing to watch it multiple times. So really liked it. I'm still giving it 2 thumbs up. And I recommend seeing, if you're a comic book fan at all, it's a must see.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like I said, if there were more Martian Manhunter, then it probably goes to a 7 or 8 for me. But I just hope that they make a Martian Manhunter standalone movie featuring Harry Lennix in the future. That would rock. So I hope they see this video and get the word, because if you and I think that they need to make a movie about the Martian Manhunter, surely they'll, that'll close the deal for them. But anyway, I think both of us agree. We both really liked the revamped Snyder Cut version of the Justice League, and there are elements there that connect to ultimate reality, that connect to the gospel, that connect to the story of God and man and good and evil. and we can, like I said, any good movie is usually going to have some elements that allows us to get glimpses. Even though these movies are fiction, they give us glimpses into ultimate reality and the ultimate nonfiction. And so when you come here to the Freethinking Film Club, we're going to discuss movies, we're going to discuss entertainment in general, maybe even music, and we're going to discuss what these artists get right and sometimes what artists get terribly wrong. And we're going to talk about truth. We're going to connect everything to truth, to apologetics, to theology, and to worldview in general. So I look forward to doing more of these shows with you, Graden. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a blast with this, and if you, the viewer, enjoyed what you saw today, definitely leave a like and consider subscribing. And also, if you've seen the Justice League Snyder Cut, let us know what you thought in the comments. We'd love to hear from you and see if you agree with us on the rating. Tell us if we're wrong. We'd love to hear it. Um, yeah, so coming up here in a couple weeks, we're going to be back with another episode. We're still deciding what that episode is going to cover since there's not a whole lot of new releases, but we'll be letting you know. And in the meantime, we'll we'll be here. So we'll see you all in the next show.
See you soon.